The first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind. The kind that wraps around you like plastic. The TV was gone. The coat rack was empty. There was a faint smell of bleach in the air, like something had been scrubbed out of existence. She stood in the doorway for a full minute, holding her heels in one hand, her phone in the other. The same phone she used to text me, "Just one drink. Promise face blowing a kiss," 3 hours earlier. The hallway light buzzed. One of the bulbs flickered. She didn't call out my name. Didn't ask where I was. Maybe deep down, she already knew. Her eyes scanned the living room, where the couch used to be, where our framed photo once sat on the shelf. Gone. The only thing left was a folded note on the dining table. She hesitated, took 3 cautious steps toward it. I had written it in Sharpie, big, all caps, no signature. "Don't wait for me ever again." That's it. For words. 6 years reduced to a permanent goodbye in black ink. And while she stood there, frozen, still in her lipstick and borrowed laughter, I was already 2 states away, driving through a fog I didn't ask for, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing left holding me together. But let me rewind. Not to the start of our relationship. That part doesn't matter anymore. Let me take you back exactly 5 days ago, when I found the receipt. 2 mojitos. 1 old-fashioned. 1 room key. Not a bar tab from a girl's night. A hotel bar. A boutique one. 5 minutes from her office. That was the first clue. The second? The way she came home with wet hair and no explanation. Said it rained. It hadn't rained in 3 days. I asked her casually, "How was work?" She said, "Exhausting." Then asked if we had any soy sauce. No eye contact. No warmth. She sat on the couch beside me and started scrolling through Instagram, laughing at memes. Meanwhile, my heart was racing like it was trying to outrun the truth. That night, I checked her browser history while she was in the shower. She had looked up, "How long does hotel scent stay on clothes? How to delete iPhone messages without backup." No, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Because confronting her would mean she'd twist it. She'd cry. She'd accuse me of not trusting her. I've seen that movie too many times. So instead, I smiled. I made her tea. I even folded her laundry. And then I began preparing my escape. Quietly, methodically, like someone planning a heist on their own life. I sold my collectibles online. I opened a separate account. I told my boss I needed time off for a family emergency. I packed 1 bag. I scheduled a moving service for the items I actually cared about. On the night she said she'd be out with coworkers again. And when that night came, I watched her fix her eyeliner like she wasn't married. She hummed while getting ready. Even kissed my forehead. "Back soon," she said. I didn't say anything. Just watched her leave, heels clicking like a countdown. As soon as the door shut, I moved fast. By the time she got back from her quick drink, the apartment was a ghost. And I was gone. Her first call came exactly 6 minutes after she read the note. Not a message. A full-blown call. Straight to voicemail. No hesitation, no pause. Just her name lighting up my phone while I sat in a quiet motel room 2 counties away, staring at a ceiling that looked exactly how I felt. Cracked, dull, and barely holding together. She didn't leave a message. Not at first. But I watched the second call come in, then a third, like clockwork. And on the 4th try, she broke. Her voice was shaking. Not the "I messed up and I'm sorry" kind of shake, but the "I lost control and I'm mad you beat me to it" kind. "Everett, what is this? Where are you? What kind of joke is this? If you're trying to punish me, this is disgusting. Call me back right now." No apology. No guilt. Just control slipping through her fingers. I didn't answer. I just listened to that voicemail 3 times, pacing the ugly beige carpet beneath my bare feet. The motel smelled like cigarettes and moldy air conditioning, but it was the first place I had breathed freely in months. The next morning, I checked my phone, 12 missed calls, 2 blocked numbers, and 1 text from a name I didn't recognize, Theo. It said, "Hey, I didn't know she was married. I swear, I didn't mean to cause anything. Please don't come looking for me." I just sat there, stunned. I hadn't even tried to find the guy. I didn't even know his name until that text. But clearly, someone was panicking. Maybe she told him I was violent. Maybe she made up some story to cover her tracks now that her escape plan had collapsed. Or maybe she had no plan at all. Maybe she never thought I'd leave. But I had. And I wasn't going back. Not after the voicemail I got at 3:14 p.m. that same day. The one where she accidentally forgot to hang up and left a recording of her arguing with someone. Her voice came through first. "No, you don't understand. He wasn't supposed to find out like that. I had everything under control." And then a man's voice. "What do you mean control? You told me you were separated." A silence. Then a slam. Maybe a door, maybe her phone. The recording cut off. I didn't know what hurt more, the cheating, or the lies she told the other guy to make herself the victim in a story she wrote with both of us. That night, I checked her social media. Nothing. No updates. No cute quotes. Not even one of those "life is hard, but I'm healing" posts. She'd gone completely silent online. And then my mother called. "She came by," she said quietly. "She looked awful. Said you left her. Said she didn't know why." "Everett, what's happening?" I wanted to scream. But instead, I said, "I'm fine, Mom. Just taking some space." Because how do you explain to someone that your wife of 6 years cheated, lied, and then tried to make you look like the villain the moment you stopped playing the fool? You don't. You just disappear, like I did. But disappearing doesn't mean the past stays buried. And I was about to learn that the hard way, because on day 3, I found something in my bag that shouldn't have been there. Something she must have slipped in without realizing it. And what I found changed everything. It was the 3rd morning since I'd vanished. The motel's air was stale, the coffee tasted like burnt cardboard, and I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in total. I kept waking up, heart pounding, expecting her face to appear at the door. But she didn't know where I was. I'd made sure of that. Or so I thought. I was digging through my duffel bag looking for my charger when my fingers brushed something unfamiliar. A small velvet pouch. Soft, drawstring. Not mine. I opened it, thinking maybe I'd accidentally grabbed something from the junk drawer at home during the rush. But when I looked inside, my breath caught in my throat. A ring. Not my wedding band. Not anything I'd ever seen before. A thick, gold men's ring. Engraved on the inside with 2 letters and a date. I recognized the date instantly. 2 weeks ago. And the initials weren't mine. It was his. Whoever T.D. was, this was his ring. And it had somehow ended up in my bag. I just sat there, staring at it, completely frozen. Was it a mistake? Had she dropped it in there without thinking? Or had it been deliberate, some twisted way of punishing me, like planting a souvenir of the betrayal in the middle of my escape? Either way, it meant something I hadn't been prepared for. She brought him to our house. Not a hotel. Not a hidden bar. Our home. Our bed, maybe. Our kitchen, where I used to make her omelets on Sundays. I wanted to throw up. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat on the edge of that lumpy motel bed, gripping that velvet pouch like it might burst into flames. Everything started spinning in my head. What if she'd been planning to leave me first? What if I'd just beaten her to it by a few days? Or worse, what if I hadn't even mattered in this story at all? I finally stood up, showered, and drove to the nearest town. I needed air. Movement. Anything. I ended up at a cheap diner with peeling booths and a waitress who looked like she'd seen the end of the world and didn't care. I ordered pancakes and sat by the window, checking my phone while pretending to eat. 17 missed calls. For voicemails. A single text that chilled me more than any of it. "I need the ring. Please. You don't understand." That's what she wrote. No greeting. No question about where I was. No apology. Just panic. Real panic. Like something bad was about to happen. I didn't respond. I just stared at that message until the screen went dark in my hand. My pancakes went cold. The waitress asked if I wanted a refill, and I nodded without hearing her. And then the next message came in, not from her. From a new number. It said, "You don't know what you're playing with. Return the ring. No cops. No games." And that's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. Something was very, very wrong. And I was now part of it, whether I wanted to be or not. I didn't reply to either message. Not hers. Not his. I turned my phone face down on the diner table and sat there long enough for the waitress to ask twice if I was okay. I told her I was just tired, which wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. The truth was that my hands were shaking so badly I had to press them against my thighs to make it stop. I left the diner without finishing my food and drove aimlessly, windows down, letting cold air slap some sense into me. My mind kept circling one thought I couldn't escape. People don't threaten strangers over a ring unless that ring matters a lot. And people don't panic over something meaningless. By the time I pulled into a grocery store parking lot, I had accepted something I'd been avoiding since the night I left. This wasn't about me anymore. Whatever game my wife had been playing, I had only been a piece on the board, a background character, the safe place she hid behind while something else was happening in plain sight. I finally listened to the rest of her voicemails. The first was anger, sharp and defensive. The second was tearful but still centered on her loss, not mine. The third was different. Her voice was low, rushed, like she was afraid of being overheard. She said my name the way you say it when you're begging someone not to ask questions. You need to give it back, she whispered. Please. I messed up. I didn't know it would turn into this. That was it. No explanation. No context. Just fear. I drove another hour before pulling over and opening the velvet pouch again. The ring felt heavier than before, like it had absorbed everything I'd learned since finding it. I searched the initials online. Nothing obvious. No social media. No engagement announcements. But when I searched the date engraved inside, something odd came up. A charity gala. Private. Invite only. Held at a downtown venue I recognized immediately. She had told me she was working late that night. My stomach sank. I remembered that evening clearly. She'd come home exhausted, heels in hand, makeup smudged, claiming the event had been a nightmare. I'd believed her. I always believed her. That night, she fell asleep before I did, phone locked, face turned away from me like she already belonged to someone else. I didn't realize it then, but that had been the night everything crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My phone buzzed again while I sat there, parked on the side of a quiet road. This time it was a photo message. No text, just an image. A screenshot of my own apartment building, taken from across the street. And beneath it, a single sentence. You shouldn't have taken what isn't yours. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because something inside me finally snapped. I had spent years being small, being careful, being the quiet husband who didn't rock the boat. And now people I didn't even know thought they could scare me into fixing her mess. They were wrong about one thing. I wasn't protecting her anymore. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't running. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't planning revenge. I just wanted to disappear, to vanish quietly and let the pieces fall without me. But when a man sends you a picture of your own front door, suddenly silence doesn't feel like safety anymore. It feels like a target. I didn't go back home. I drove to the police station. I didn't tell them everything. I knew how that would sound. Hi, my wife cheated on me. And now some guy who left a ring in my bag is threatening me over it. Yeah, that doesn't exactly land like a criminal case. But I reported the message. The photo. Gave them the number. They took a report, told me they'd look into it. I could tell by the tone that it probably meant, unless someone's bleeding, this goes in a file and stays there. So I did what I always do. I handled it myself. I booked a week at a different motel under a fake name. Bought a burner phone. I even paid cash like I was in some low-budget thriller. And then I did what I swore I wouldn't do. I started digging into him. Whoever TD was, he wasn't just some random guy my wife hooked up with. He had resources, influence, maybe even people. And the deeper I looked, the more things started to click. A news article popped up. Quiet. Small town. Minor scandal. A local development firm accused of laundering money through shell companies. Company name matched one I'd seen in Natalie's old emails. She had once applied for a consulting gig with them, but told me nothing came of it. Now I was starting to think something did. The initials matched. T.D. Trevor Dane. CEO. Married. Public image cleaner than glass. But his eyes in the one photo I found? Cold. Calculated. And suddenly, the ring made sense. It wasn't just a token of a fling. It was proof. Evidence. And it wasn't meant to be left behind. I sat on the edge of the motel bed and finally asked myself something I had been avoiding for days. What if she wasn't just cheating? What if she had been helping him? My thoughts were spiraling, but they landed on one hard, ugly truth. She had lied to both of us. To me, about the affair. To him, about her life. And somewhere between those lies, she had slipped up. Maybe she stole something. Maybe she threatened to talk. Maybe she'd gotten involved in something she couldn't walk away from. And when she realized it, she did the only thing she could think of. She ran home. To me. The safe, boring, loyal husband she knew wouldn't ask too many questions. I was never the man she loved. I was the man she hid behind. And now that I'd stepped out from behind the curtain, I had a giant, invisible target on my back. Later that night, I got one more message. No photo this time. Just 5 chilling words. She's not the only one. And that's when it hit me. I thought I'd escaped the worst by leaving her. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Because whatever she was mixed up in, I had just inherited it. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat in the corner of the motel room with the lights off, back pressed to the wall, phone in one hand, the ring in the other. Every time a car passed outside, I flinched. Every footstep in the hallway sounded like someone coming for me. I wasn't paranoid. I was paying attention, finally. I kept playing that message over and over in my head. She's not the only one. At first, I thought it meant another woman. Another affair. But the more I let the words settle, the clearer it became. This wasn't about romance. It was about leverage. Natalie wasn't the prize. She was the liability. And somehow, I had become the keeper of something I was never supposed to see. I started connecting dots I hadn't dared to before. 2 months earlier, Natalie had begged me to scan some documents for her freelance project. Just boring PDFs, tax forms, contracts. I didn't even glance at them. I scanned and emailed them off like a good, oblivious husband. Now I couldn't stop wondering, what if they weren't hers? What if she'd used my laptop, my IP address, my name, to cover her tracks? What if I was the backup plan from the start? I needed answers. And I needed them from her, not through voicemails or guilt-drenched texts. I needed to see her face when I asked the question that had been burning in my chest since I left. What the hell did you drag me into? So I did something incredibly stupid. I went back. I didn't tell her. I didn't even go inside. I just parked across the street from our apartment building at 2:08 a.m., engine off, phone in my lap, watching the window that used to be mine. The lights were on. She was still awake. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Then I saw it. A shadow moving past the blinds, pacing. She was talking to someone. Not on the phone. In person. I could see 2 silhouettes. And I'll never forget the moment one of them stepped into clearer view. It was Trevor Dane. Him. In my home. Wearing the same damn watch I saw in the charity gala photos. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't panicking. He was calm. Natalie, on the other hand, looked like she was unraveling. At one point, she threw her hands up like she was begging him to understand something. He shook his head, tapped the table with his finger, said something low and final, and then he left, not in a hurry, not like someone with something to hide, like someone who had already won. I stayed in the car another hour, watching her pace. Watching her cry, watching her look at her phone without dialing. And for a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered. She never once called to say she was sorry. Never once tried to explain what really happened. She just wanted me to clean it up. To give back the ring. To make the danger go away without having to admit who she really was beneath all the charm and manipulation. And now I knew for sure. She wasn't the victim. She was the bait. I started the engine and drove off without letting her know I'd ever been there. Because the next move wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. By the next morning, something inside me had shifted. Not confidence. I don't think I've ever really known what that feels like. But a kind of cold steadiness. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't checking the locks or rereading her texts. The fear had calcified into something quieter, heavier. A decision. He sat in my home. Drank my whiskey. Gave orders to the woman I'd spent 6 years loving like she hadn't already left me in every way that mattered. And she didn't stop him. She didn't even try. I was done being the soft place she landed when everything else fell apart. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a shelter. And he'd stormed right in and claimed it. So I drove. I didn't even know where I was going at first. Just that I needed to be far from that apartment. Far from motel rooms and coffee-stained furniture and panic. But halfway through a 2-hour stretch of highway, I remembered something she probably didn't even realize I'd noticed. 2 weeks before everything blew up, she'd left her work bag in the back of my car. I remember offering to bring it up, and she panicked. Snatched it like I'd threatened her. Told me it had sensitive stuff inside. Contracts. NDAs. I thought nothing of it then, but I never forgot how her eyes flashed when I touched it. And by some miracle, or maybe fate, I had never returned it. It was still there, buried beneath an old gym towel and a windshield scraper I hadn't used in years. I pulled over on a dirt turnout, yanked the bag out, and dumped the contents across the back seat. First thing I saw, 3 flash drives. Unlabeled. Taped together. Second, a folder. Thick. Legal letterhead. A name I recognized. Trevor Dane Holdings. But this wasn't some glossy brochure. These were statements. Transfer records. Receipts from accounts routed through countries that don't ask questions. Dozens of them. And then, inside a sealed envelope, I found something that made my chest go cold. A handwritten note. Short. Coded. But the signature, unmistakable. His initials. TD. And beside that, a passport. Not hers. A woman I'd never heard of, but the photo looked close. Just different enough to pass a lazy inspection. New name. New country. She was preparing to disappear. Not with me. Not with him either, maybe. Alone. Or maybe she never intended to use it. Maybe it was leverage, the same way the ring had become leverage in my hands. But now I had both. I sat there in the car for a long time, staring at all of it. The drives. The documents. Everything she thought I'd never see. The woman who once panicked when I asked why she changed her phone passcode had trusted me so little she forgot what I was capable of when I stopped trusting her back. I drove to a town 2 hours north and met a guy I'd only known through a tech forum. He used to jailbreak phones and sell encrypted routers out of a basement. Now, he worked in cybersecurity and owed me a favor. He plugged the flash drives in silently while I sat there sweating through my shirt. After 20 minutes, he turned to me and said, "You know what this is, right?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He said, "This is blackmail material. On him. On others. If she gave this to you, she just made you a target." "She didn't give it to me," I said. "She just didn't think I'd ever find it." He looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like I was holding the match to the fire they tried to keep hidden. I held onto the files for 3 days. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I waited. Not for her. She never came. Not for him. He never needed to. But for clarity. I waited to feel something that wasn't pain or fear or rage. And when it finally came, it surprised me. It was quiet. It didn't roar like revenge usually does in the movies. It didn't scream through my bloodstream. It just settled, like clean air after a storm. I didn't need to destroy them anymore. I needed to be done with them. But I still had something they couldn't ignore. The kind of truth that makes powerful men sweat and makes women like Natalie scramble for a new mask. I mailed a copy of everything. The flash drives, the signed envelope, the fake passport, to a reporter at a small but relentless financial crimes blog. Not a giant network. Just a guy who had written obsessively about Trevor Dane's shady real estate deals 2 years ago and never gave up. I used no return address. No signature. I included one line, typed in bold. She wasn't the only one. But she was the first to get scared. Then I drove across the state line, checked into a little cabin Airbnb by a lake no one cared to visit in December, and turned off my phone. I didn't watch the fallout. I didn't check the news. I didn't scroll to see if her face made headlines or if his empire cracked open. Because that wasn't the point anymore. I wasn't doing it for justice. I was doing it to take my story back. 2 weeks later, I got a letter forwarded to the motel I'd first vanished to. My old landlord must have passed it on without thinking. It was from her. Natalie. Handwritten. She said she knew I had the files. She said she knew what I'd done. She said I could have ruined everything. And then she wrote the only sentence that mattered. "You were never meant to be part of this." She was right. I wasn't. But I was. Because she made me part of it. Because I loved her while she was building an exit strategy. Because I stood in the fire and called it warmth. So I wrote back. Just 4 words. Same as the note I'd left her the night I disappeared. "Don't wait for me." This time, I meant it with peace. It's been 4 months now. I live in a quieter place. I started selling furniture again, but this time it's mine, handmade, not antique. I wake up early. I take long walks. I cook meals that don't sit untouched on a table waiting for someone to come home late with lipstick on her teeth and lies in her mouth. I met someone. She doesn't ask too many questions. She doesn't talk about forever. She just smiles like she means it and shows up when she says she will. And me? I still flinch when the phone rings. I still check shadows before I unlock my door. But I breathe easier. I laugh sometimes. I sleep through the night. I didn't get revenge. I got free. And that was enough.